Hi, today we're going to evaluate a 1972 Triumph TR6 harmonic damper. And we're not going to go through information that's really in the manual. This channel is about bringing you information that I found that isn't in the manual and that helps you, that you need to know as we're rebuilding our TR6 engine. So if you like this, if it's helpful, please subscribe, please like the video. It encourages me to do more of these videos. So let's get started. First off, what is it? And then what do you evaluate, and what is where on this thing? We're going to look at the overall condition, evaluate the overall condition of the metal, the overall condition of the rubber. We'll talk about slippage between the outer ring and the inner ring and how to evaluate that. Then we're going to talk about evaluating the actual dampening effect of one of these things. And then once we have all that data, we'll be able to figure out, okay, is this in spec? Is it out of spec? Do I reuse it? And then what are my, if it's not in spec, what are my options? Can I get a new one? Do I rebuild it? Why should I do each? Some of them are really expensive. Some of them are fairly cheap. Which one do I need to get? So on. We'll also look at the tools that I use in doing this. So this website helped me a lot in understanding what a harmonic dampener does. It's Enginelabscom, and it talks about as the pistons fire, the crankshaft actually twists, and explains, it shows how the forces of the twist, in an initial twist when the piston fires, and then it rebounds. And the purpose of the harmonic dampener is to take up some of the energy of that twist and rebound. It talks about that there's two kinds of harmonic dampeners. There's one that has an elastomeric band in it, which is what ours is, and there's another that's is fluid. Anyway, it talks about the different parts. There's an outer inertia ring. That acts as a small flywheel that wants to remain at a constant speed despite the acceleration and deceleration. There's an elastomeric band, which is the rubber in between them, and the inner hub that runs slightly faster and slower in response to these torque pulses. So the band transmits part of that vibrational energy, the forces from the hub to the outer ring, and converts some of it to heat. Now there's there's another kind. There's a viscous harmonic dampener that has a thick silicon fluid inside of it. Now the elastomeric kind, the kind we have, is tuned to a particular speed. The advantage of the fluid kind, like this, is that it goes throughout all the RPMs. So the elastomeric, maybe they tune it to where we redline, maybe 5,500 RPM, something like that. The fluid one does the whole thing. So here is a chart. The chart goes from 1,200 RPM to about 7,000 RPM. And it shows our style of dampener has all these spikes in it. The liquid, the viscous one, is nice and damped across the RPM range. And you can see ours style. Here we go about 5,500. It starts to really shake, and this would explain why, if our chart looks like this, why 6,000 RPM is a bad idea in our cars. It's interesting that if you go over and you look at good parts, they talk about you can buy one of these fluid kits, fluid harmonic dampeners at good parts. There's the fluid one rather than the elastomeric. And he talks about how it extends the power range. It extends it to 600, 800 RPM more. Previously, his engine could only run to 6,000 RPM. But shifting at 5,500 RPM was about, was poor. Now it pulls strong through 6,500, so it gives him an extra 600 APM 800 RPM, and he says he gets at least 10 more horsepower out of the thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So I question anytime anybody tells me I can spend $100 per horsepower to buy their whiz-bang product, whether that's true. And I found this motoiq.com site where they actually tested one of these fluid-based viscous harmonic dampers versus one of the other ones, and you can see that they were getting about 5 to 10 horsepower more across the entire band. The blue, the bottom line is the bass line. This is the bass line here, and then these are the viscous ones, and you can see there's about a 5 to 10 horsepower difference. Now that's this engine. Who knows with our engines? Good Parts claims they get 5. What would he claim? He said he gets 10 more horsepower, and it pulls strong. So maybe so. So what are the symptoms? How do you tell if this thing is gone bad, if it's no longer dampening? Well, it can cause a vibration in the car, like a drive shaft that's out of balance. It can cause noises, and it can grenade. It can actually fly apart and grenade the inside of your engine compartment. It also can cause your engine to grenade if it no longer dampens those torsional vibrations, especially at higher RPM. I found a great website on troubleshooting harmonic balancers, especially the elastomeric ones, fluidampr.com. It gives a list of 10 things that you can look for. I covered several of them. You should cover the rest on your own. A visual inspection of the main bearings shows some wear right here. This one, there's some staining in the same place, but I'm not sure that's wear. This one seems okay. Number 4 has the most wear. You can see it right on the outside edge here. So let's get down to evaluating this one. First off, we're going to look at the overall condition of the metal. We're going to look at the keyway, the crank hole, and the pulley, and so on in the metal. So looking at our keyway, this is really important because a lot of these fail at the keyway. We see on this one, there is a little damage at the rear edge of this keyway. You can see it's opened up a little bit. I don't know if that's normal or not. It doesn't look like it to me. Maybe somebody tried to force it on, but it looks like most of the keyway is okay. The board hole looks okay. I did a careful examination of it, and I also know that it fits on the crank well. The pulley itself, the metal of the pulley, looks fine. There's no broken, chunked pieces out of it. And lastly, the pins, which are located on the front hub piece on mine, the pins look like they're in good shape. I don't see any evidence of movement or unnatural activity happening here. So to throw one more piece of controversy in here, there is discussion as to whether or not this piece does damping action. You can buy a fan eliminator kit that will get rid of this piece. Well, that's quite a bit of weight on there, and some people have argued that this piece, this weight, is necessary to provide additional damping force to the crankshaft beyond just the damper. So if you take this weight off, you're actually allowing your crankshaft to flex more. So I don't have an answer to that. That's something you'll have to decide for yourself. So here's an example of that on the 74tr6.com. He does a section on replacing his damper, and he's put the damper elimination, he's put that fan eliminator kit in place on his and seems to be happy with it. So overall, the metal looks fine. I'm going to give that keyway a pass. I'm going to say good enough. So now we're going to look at the overall condition of the rubber. Now they painted over this rubber, and the front looks okay. I think that's just cracked paint. So the front of it looks okay. Look at the rear, and it's kind of swollen up and cracked. So there's a problem there. So the first thing that I read about is that you look for aged or hardened rubber. Is it breaking off? Is it chipping off? Well, no, this feels still rubbery. It feels still rubbery. It's not hard. And both sides, let's take a look at this side. This side feels rubbery too. It sort of feels like maybe inner tube tire or like a tire. It feels like putting my thumbnail into a tire. So as far as that goes is okay. But another thing it said, so age hardened, it looks like we're all right for age hardening, at least what we can get to. So another thing they said to look for was oil rot. And oil rot will cause bulging and cracking. Well, that sure looks like bulging to me. That looks like it probably, I would guess that was what it was like from the factory. And this cracking and bulging, I think that's from oil. And this car had a really bad front seal. It leaked oil like crazy. So I think this is oil rot here. How far in does that go? I don't know. I can't really, I guess I can tear it off if I really try, but it's really hard to tear off. The other thing it says to look for is just plain missing, if there's big chunks missing. So overall condition of the rubber, I'm going to say questionable. That looks like oil rot there. I don't know how far down it goes. So the next thing that we can check is the alignment. We're going to look for, we're actually going to look for slippage. We're going to look for planar slippage, planar alignment slippage, and rotational alignment slippage. Now, what do I mean by planar? That's a word I made up. But apparently, these, remember we have the outer inertia ring and we have the inner ring. These rings apparently can slip side to side, and like this outer ring could be offset to this side or that side. That planar alignment looks pretty darn good to me. Now the question is rotational alignment. Now you may have heard about these, that there's some question as to whether or not the inner ring turns with respect to the outer ring. If this gets rotten or heats up too much or whatever, the inertia of this can actually turn the outer ring with respect to the inner ring. Well, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is this keyway and line is on the inner ring, and your timing marks are on the outer ring. And there's actually a lot of people reported that their timing marks are out of alignment. They're not in the correct alignment. I saw one for a Spitfire where it was way over here somewhere. So what is it supposed to be, and how do you measure it? Now, just taking a quick glance at mine, it looks like the top dead center mark is a little bit clockwise. It's a little bit this way of where that key is. What's it supposed to be? I looked in the manual. It's not in the manual. So how do I know if that thing slipped? I've seen a lot of people resort to just timing by vacuum gauges or by ear because they have no confidence in this and they don't know. Well, I think I figured it out. So let's take a look and see what that specification is, the relationship between the keyway and the timing mark, and how to measure it. So I purchased a new damper that I sent back because the marks here were wrong. I'll put a link to the video there. But I did, at the time I had it, I did compare the crank keyway to the top dead center mark and found that this one was identical with the new one. So I have a pretty good reason to believe that this one has not slipped, and I can use this as a reference. I did, however, find on the six-pack forum, I did find somebody who had answered this question under a thread called crank damper key, and they had mentioned that they had looked at it, and they found that it was 10 degrees after top dead center. If your mark shows it to be 10 degrees after top dead center, it was put together by the factory. So we'll take a look at how to measure that. So I did this 2 different times, 2 different ways with 2 different sets of tools. You might not have one of these, but what I did was, first off, I checked and made sure I had that exactly at 90 degrees, and I used a better square than this, but this is what I had in my hand. And what I did was I turned it over this way because this surface is closer to this surface than the other way around. So what I did was I put this here like this and got this, the left side of this aligned perfectly over, halfway over the key shaft. Then I took it and I made sure that this was perfectly, on both sides, it was perfectly aligned to the outside of the wheel, and I took the very end of this and I marked the edge. Now I tapped it a little bit, but I marked this edge. I came back, put this rule, aligned it there, here, aligned it on the mark, put it halfway through the keyway, and you'll see we're right at 10 degrees. So that seems to line up well. Another way to do this is to take a good quality scale that has a center line down the middle and use the parallel, the principle of a tangent to a circle here, and make sure you're nice and locked in on both sides of this. Line that center line up with the keyway. Close one eye so you're not getting parallax problems. I don't know if you can see that. And then come up here and you can see that aligns right at 10 degrees. To be clear about this, the crank hole, the crank keyway, if you come right up here, will align 10 degrees to the left of top dead center. 10 degrees to the left. So this keyway points 10 degrees to the left, looked at from. So what's the verdict on this particular dampener? Well, I think the overall condition of the metal, it passed that with that minor defect on the keyway. The rubber, I think we might have a problem with aged and oil problems. As far as slippage, planar alignment and rotation alignment, I think we're okay. Dampening effect, we didn't have any symptoms of like vibration or a little bit of squeal or that kind of thing, so I think it's probably okay. So now I have to decide what I'm going to do. Am I going to replace it or not, and what are my options? Well, my options are, first I can do nothing. I can do nothing, and I can take the chance of grenading the engine. Now, I did have that one bearing that was worn copper through in the main, so maybe I'm getting some torsional vibration of that crankshaft. I might want to think about it. So my choice is to do nothing, which I'm not going to do, to get a new stock replacement in the same way it is, elastomeric rubber with the elastomeric rubber, and I can get these from a variety of the vendors. I can get a new race one. We saw the one from Good Parts, where we could get the new race one. Now our choice there is really how fast are we going to spin it. A stock one, if you're going to spin it up to maybe 5,500, the stock one is probably okay. If you're going to go over if you're going to be spinning it at higher RPMs all the time, if you balanced your internals, if you've got maybe a steel crankshaft, which can take that, and you want to go up to 8,000, you definitely need to get the aftermarket one, the viscous one, like Good Parts' one. So I could get a new race one, pay $1,000, or I could get a rebuild stock one. Now the rebuild stock ones are better than OEM according to their websites. They have a silicone-based rubber that's better at dampening than what's here. At least that's what they say. Let's take a look at one of the popular ones as far as getting this rebuilt. For rebuild options, you hear about two often. You hear about Damper Doctor, and you hear about Damper Dudes. One, it's interesting when you look them up on the map. One's in Anderson and one's in Redding, and they're 10 miles apart in California. So there's somebody has suggested that perhaps it's the same place. But you can send it in, and Damper Dudes seems to be a popular one. And if you take a look, they actually even list Triumph. And they have a no longer available TR6 aluminum replacement. And then for the Triumph TR6, it's $112 to have it rebuilt, plus your shipping and so on. So damperdudes.net or Damper Doctor, take your choice. Wishbone's Classics sells them for $179, and he claims that that they can be off by 2 to 12 degrees on the timing marks. Well, we can check those, right? We know how to check those. So, but this is if you want somebody to pre-check it or see what he's got going. You can try Wishbone Classics, or you can go up to the higher end one and get the $1,000 one. From Good Parts, and I'm sure you can find other vendors that have these. I think for mine, I think I'm going to go ahead and send it to damperdudes.net. A lot of people on the forums have been using them and had good luck with them. Well, I try to cover things that are not in the manual on this channel, and today we did the we did the damper. We found a lot of stuff that wasn't in the manual. We looked at what a harmonic damper is. We looked at how to evaluate the wear. We looked at, especially on the slippage, that the keyway will be 10 degrees, aligned 10 degrees counterclockwise viewed from the front. That's spec, so that was good. We learned the damping effect. The stock maybe damps up to 6K. The race up to those fluid ones, maybe up to 7-8K. We looked at some options about what to do about this thing. I hope it was helpful. You might want to watch the series on the playlist on rebuilding the TR6 engine, because I've got a lot of other ones like this up there. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, please subscribe. Make a comment if you know something about this or have your own experience with these, or and like the video. Thanks for watching.